Shalom. Giving all praise to Yahweh Hashem Yahushua Hashem Rakakwadash. Giving all praise to Yahweh Hashem Yahushua Hashem Rakakwadash. Nawathan Kal Halal Yamla Yahweh Hashem Yahushua Hashem Rakakwadash. Wa Shalom to the hopefully elect out there. I'm going to entitle this video Acts 17, verse 11. What does it mean? So this is the book of Acts, obviously. And this is Paul's ministry as the Most High gave him spirit. And this whole chapter, you can do a, video epistle on this whole chapter because there's a lot of information in this chapter. But when you start from the first verse on down, you read about the, well, you know what? Let me do this. Let me do this here. I didn't want to make this a long video. I'm not going to make it a long video. So this is Paul at Thessalonica. And when you look up, Thessalonica, Corinth, Macedon, those places were known as Asia Minor. They were north of Jerusalem. They were north of the so-called land of Israel, because you had a lot of Israelites that were living up in those regions under the rule of the Greeks at that time. Then the Romans came in after the Greeks, according to prophecy and according to secular history. And a lot of those jakes got caught up in, well, they were forced to at first, but they taught their children that they were, they taught them the Hellenistic ways, which Jake was a part of that. Jake built that up. He, the story of the Greek myth were made up by Jake because the characters were so-called black people, which were Israelites. But they were so messed up that they didn't identify themselves with being Israelites. This is why the Most High had to put the Spirit on the Apostle Paul. He made a statement, I am an apostle of the Gentiles, therefore I magnify my office. What does that mean? That means the Gentiles that were in reach, he dealt with, but he said, I'm magnified, I got to go to more of the Gentiles, meaning the Israelites. And you have these Christians that say, well, the Gentiles in the New Testament are actually Gentiles. No, they're not. They're Israelites that got caught up in that mess during the time of the Maccabees. So you're not going to understand this if you don't go into the book of Maccabees or you don't go into the Apocrypha, namely the book of Maccabees, first Maccabees, second Maccabees. When you have on records, third Maccabees. So this is why he had to, and this, another reason why the Apostle Paul spoke fluent Hebrew, because he was a Hebrew. He said, I was a Hebrew of Hebrews, as touching the law, a Pharisee, meaning he kept the law perfectly. But did he go off and break the law here and there? Yeah. That's why he made the statement that he made in Romans, the 7th chapter. But as far as having a beard on his face, as far as not eating unclean animals, as far as honoring the Sabbath, as far as not committing adultery. So you have sins that are unto death, and you have sins that you can sacrifice certain animals. Or if you're unclean, that's a sin, to be around a dead body. So that's a sin. So what you do is you're unclean for 7 days. When you have a wife, you are to be away from you. In the kingdom, our women are going to be living in separate places, and they will be having their periods. They're not going to have labor pains when they give birth, because that was a curse. So you got to understand the whole this word. You got to understand some history. You got to understand some Greek and some Hebrew, because some of these words, to get a better understanding, you have to go to the Greek word. If in the New Testament, the Hebrew if it's in the Old Testament. Not saying that the apostles spoke Greek. They didn't speak Greek. They might have understood a couple of words in Greek, but Paul spoke fluent Greek and fluent Hebrew for the sole reason of him teaching the Israelites in the Gentile state of mind. So I'm not going to read this whole thing, but he went to Athens. The people that he ran into, the men that he ran into Athens, which were Stoics and Epicureans, they were all Israelites. Oh, they're from Athens. That means that they're white men. Nope, they were Jakes. So now let's hear, because I'm not going to go into the whole chapter, which I'm tempted to. Let's jump down to right here. Paul at Berea. Berea is a place. It says, and the brethren immediately sent away Paul and Silas by night unto Berea. You know what I'm gonna do? Let me click on the word Berea. Perhaps a province from a derivative of Peoria, i.e., the region beyond the coastline. A city in Macedonia, because you had a lot of Israelites living in Macedonia, Corinth, Berea, Ephesus, near Pella, at the foot of Mount Bermius. Berea, a city of Macedonia. So that would be considered Asia Minor. So let's go back to the 10th verse. And the brethren immediately sent away Paul and Silas by night unto Berea, who coming thither went into the synagogue or the temple of the Jews. These were Israelites. Remember, you had Israelites that were considered the law of the stranger. You had Israelites that were living outside of Israel that had temples where they were living at, and they spoke Hebrew and all that. And there was an actual temple body of believers in Babylon. Peter, the apostle Peter, spoke about that. He said these were more noble than those in Thessalonica. That was another place, city in Asia Minor, in that they received the word with all readiness of mind and searched the scriptures daily whether those things were so. You know what they did? They questioned what the Apostle Paul taught them. You see a reference when the Apostle Paul said, as it is written in another place. He was quoting Romans 9, he mentions that, for example. When he speaks about Jacob and Esau, he's going back to the Old Testament. And Paul did that many times. So when the Apostle Paul taught these Gentile Israelites that they were Israelites, first of all, he had to identify them as being Israelites, and then he had to go to the New Testament because that's all they had. What happened during the time of the apostles were letters being sent back and forth. Like now, what we do is we do video epistles. Now, some scholars say that a particular church would get the letter from Paul, and he would read it in front of the congregation as to what to do and what not to do. And there was times that Paul actually visited some of the people face to face. But Paul got to them people by uh, these letters, these epistles, just like we push this word out to by video epistles. And you can learn a whole lot from watching these videos. We cover everything. We cover everything. So this particular group of Israelites that were Gentiles coming out of that Gentile state of mind, but then you also had Israelites. He had to wake up Israelites that knew that they were Israelites and to make them understand that the Messiah came already, that the part of the Messiah coming has been fulfilled. That's why the small hats can't see it, because they were never in the land at that time. You had them Romans up in there, them heathens. Then Jake took over. Jake took over that whole empire right after Domitian, the youngest son of Vespasian. You got Bishop Nate talking about, then you had your first Jake. He teaches that to this day. Septimius Severus in 193. He got that from Yeshaya. The first so-called black emperor of Rome, he came on the scene in the after 96, 97 maybe. His name was Nerva, and he was one of the good 5 Caesars. And that was, like I said, that had to be around 97, 98 AD. So Septimius Severus didn't come on the scene until 100 years later. And see, this is what these Edomites, these elite, are afraid of, because they have the records. They know that we took them over, we took them down. And they see that we're going to give it, they're nervous about us taking them down again. Because Jake is coming up in the high ranking offices, man. They're becoming doctors, lawyers, professional people, millionaires, multimillionaires, billionaires. So Jake has a lot of influence, just like they did back then. And Esau knows this. Why do you think they got rid of T.J. Holmes when he got with that chick? What was her name? Amy Robach. Now they can say, well, that was immoral. He left his wife and she left him. We can't have them. But wait a minute. On what is that? MSNBC, you have a show called it's a morning show with Joe Scarborough, and his guest it was a host, and the co-host was what's her name? Damn. Not Zelensky. Her father died. He was like up here during the time of the Clinton era. Brzezinski, yeah. Mika Brzezinski. Mika Brzezinski was married to another man, and Scarborough Joe was married to a woman, and they had an affair, and they kept having an affair, and each of them left their spouses, and guess what? They're still doing a show as husband and wife. No big deal, no big scandal came out of that. But why? With the thing with T.J. Holmes, because he's a Jake. That's a fear of a black planet. That proves that this country is a racist country. And he wound up taking this lily white girl from this he's like a soap star. He wound up pulling it from a damn white man. That's embarrassing. So that shows you, man, that these devils are a bunch of damn hypocrites, man. Nobody brings that up. So basically, what they did, they punished. They punished. They really wanted to punish him. They don't want to punish her, but they have to because it's gonna look bad because she's married too. You know, an affair is a two-way street. But they really wanted to get after him. How dare you, nigga, get one of our beautiful white, lily white women? And that opens the door to when other Edomite women see that, they'll say, "Oh yeah, he is kind of cute." And I remember this black guy was looking at me a certain way, and I mistakenly look at this black guy, and he caught me looking at him. I'm going to say something to him. I'm gonna see if the saying is true. So you got a lot of Edomite women that are secretly dealing with Jake men, leading double lives because they because they want the hot chocolate. They want the sexual chocolate. Let me stop. Thinking about coming to America, sexual chocolate. Anyway, it says these were more noble than those in Thessalonica, and that they received the word with all readiness of mind. I mean, they wouldn't have sleeping, they were taking notes. They would go back and study and research and search the scriptures daily, every day. They study to show thyself approved, a workman, needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. This is why we say we got 100% knowledge. This is why we keep teaching that the MOTB is the fulfillment of, the Karagma, the C-hip. And like I said, I'm at the point now where if you can't see it and you're an Israelite, you're top ranked group, Israelite camp, and you can't see it, you can't tell me, oh, I just didn't see it. Well, that just proves one thing. If you truly can't see it, that means the Most High didn't fully open up your eyes. And I believe you can see it, but I believe they put a gag order on you not to teach it because that's the next thing that's coming down the pike. The whole Max Nation was a trial run. They're gonna have these C-hip stations, and what are you gonna say now? And everybody's gonna be coming. They're gonna be looking at the GMS videos. So let me read that again. 11 verse, Acts 17 verse 11. These were more noble than those in Thessalonica, and that they received the word with all readiness of mind. They're alert and focused and search the scriptures daily whether those things were so. So let's look up the word search. I'm not even going to go into 12 verse. Let me look up the word mind or readiness of mind. Zeal, spirit, eagerness, inclination, readiness of mind. Ready, willing. And search the scriptures. I'm going to look up the word search. Searched. Examine or judge. To investigate, examine, inquire into, scrutinize, sift, question, specifically in a forensic sense, of a judge to hold an investigation. To interrogate, examine the accused of or witness, to judge or estimate, determine the excellence or defects of any person or thing. Think about that. Examine, judge, ask questions, search, discern. And we encourage that if you're following us, GMS, the Most High, of course, Yahweh Basham Al Shai, we encourage you to be we're not looking for cheerleaders, we're not looking for parrots. You know, you can say a word, you can say hello, you got a parrot, the parrot listen, it'll say hello. You can say goodbye, the parrot say goodbye. What is a parrot doing? It's mimicking what you say. It's mimicking what you say. And that's what the IUIC does. They're parrots. They're parrots. And the rest of these groups are most of these groups are parrots. They'll see a guy that's a leader. They'll say, this is my leader. Whatever he says, I'm just going to repeat what he says. We encourage you to be what? Investigate, examine, inquire into, scrutinize, sift, question, specifically in a forensic sense of a judge to hold an investigation, to interrogate, examine the accused or witness. You have direct examination, then you have cross-examination, then you got redirect. To judge or estimate, determine the excellence or defects of any person or thing. So when the great thing came out, instead of these other Israelites, they all got emotional. They all turned into Christians. Instead of them saying, why would Tahanim say something that outlandish? And normally it's strange to them because they usually make sense. That doesn't make sense to me. Let me go and research that. And if you research, you'll say, I hate to say it, but they're right. That's why it took a number of years, about 8, 9 years, for people to start seeing it. We've been dealing with the, charagma as far as that's one topic. And you got guys that still can't see it. And they'll study, make a counter video on you. Them niggas, man. Them, not them are niggas, them niggas. And Nick Cannon called his babies them babies. I call these motherfuckers them niggas. Hey, when Bishop Nathaniel said that the new moon is a full moon, and back in 2016, all the years before they never said that. Oh, I did some research and new moon is on the full moon. You know what? All them people followed suit with that guy. So they're parakeets, they're parrots. That's all they are. I didn't even want to bring their name up. But when I'm saying these things right now, IUIC comes to mind. ISUPK comes to mind. Sakari is more closer to the Church of Berea than they are. And recently, the head of Sakari, which is priest, elder, whatever, Alazar was on a guest on Sarnetta's show. Sarnetta said the number one group out there, because they go into the scriptures, is GMS. And And we don't want to have nothing to do with this guy, Sarnetta, anyway. So he said, what do you think about them? And then Al-Azhar told the truth. He said, yeah, they hit the scriptures. Just like Sakari hit the scriptures. They examine things, they go into the Hebrew, the Greek. But I believe he said, but there's one thing I don't go with. And he's talking about the great doctrine because he's caught up in his emotions. Because he can't imagine his daughter. Can I imagine my daughter getting raped by an Israelite? And I got accepted, which is all right. You're caught up in your emotions. Now you can say, well, it's true, but I can't imagine my daughter getting raped by that man. So you got to watch over. The scriptures tell you that. The Apocrypha will tell you to watch over your daughter, man. Keep her in straightly. Because there's men out there looking at fine little fillies, looking to get them. And they're willing to pay the price. Not like we're doing that. We're just, Brother Polite asked us a question. We gave him a straight answer. He said, oh, I guess that's right. So I can do it my dance out. Look at the mess that you're in now. Anyway, let's do this. I promise I wasn't going to make this long. It's getting long. Anyway, I went to, I put Acts 17:11 Bible commentary. I went to the short, well, this is even shorter, but they entered it, Cambridge Bible for Schools and Colleges, more noble, applied first to nobility of birth, which is the primary sense of nobilis. The word in its secondary sense implies, as here, nobility of character. Right, because you can be born, there's a king, he has a son. The son automatically becomes a prince, which he's of nobility, right? Then you have a poor man that has a son, and he raises up into the ranks. So he becomes a noble because of his character, okay? Because you could be born a noble and not have the character of a noble. Lordship, okay, receive the word, i.e., the word of the Most High. It was the same teaching which had been given to the Jews in Thessalonica. So the Apostle Paul made a statement. Did I read the whole thing? That they were more noble in Thessalonica because they searched it and studied it. They questioned it. They were eager to learn. They were focused. This we see because the Bereans go to the Old Testament scriptures to examine. Let me do this. To examine into the truth of what they hear. Here we have a noteworthy instance of the right of private judgment. Even an apostle's word, which is Paul, is not to be taken for granted. What is it saying? Whatever your leader teaches you, you question it. Ask some questions about it. Study it yourself. Go deeper into it. Investigate in a forensic sense as a judge, as a lawyer. And that's what these guys don't do. You know, this is like something to get into for a lot of these guys. You know, I see these. What makes you become an Israelite? I seen these guys marching down the street, and them cadence that they were saying. I got to be a part of that. Well, guess what? That's how the Nation of NOI started. With Malcolm X marching down the street, they all had the same suits on, same colored suits. When you watch Farrakhan, or Minister Farrakhan, and he's teaching this big auditorium that's all clean, palatial auditorium. And everybody, you got the women in a certain order, they all wearing the same garments, the men all wearing the same garments. And that's what people, the mentality of a Jake, when they're looking for a leader or a religion or a way of life, they look at it like they look at a car. If the car looks good on the outside, it got a nice system, they're gonna get the car. They're not gonna do what the white boy do. Put the hood, put the code scanner. I have a what a $200 code scanner in my car. If the code come up, I put the code scanner on it. Oh, it's a catalytic converter. Oh, it's this. Oh, it's that. Then you might be able to fix it yourself, or you might be able to take it to a mechanic and you say, I did a code scanner. You got the front bank one that needs to be changed. So he'll put his code scanner on it. See, Jake doesn't do that. They don't open up the hood. They don't pull out the dipstick to see if there's milky white substance on the bottom. That indicates that it's a blown head gasket. That you're gonna have to do an engine job on it. Jake, tell me that Jake check out the car that way, like Edomites check out cars. The Edomite will bring a mechanic with him, give him $50. He said, do the run over, do the once over. And he'll tell him, this car is solid. Jake don't do that. Jake looks at the way the car looks on the outside and the way the system works. That's how Jake look at a car. And Jake, when they come into following Israel, they got the same concept in their mind. Oh, they're all wearing the same garments. They're marching, they're goose stepping together. They got them. That's why a lot of those guys are not really grounded and settled in. That's why when they fall off, what do? They run right to vocab. People that fall off from the GMS, what do? They keep teaching. And they'll keep calling themselves the Israelites. I don't remember every time of a man, I'm not talking about women so much, but men come into GMS for maybe 3-4 years, then leaving and saying, oh, see, I found out I'm not an Israelite. That was nothing but a code. Why? Because he's grounded and settled. He knows in the spirit that he's an Israelite. But you got some of these other groups, when they leave, they go back to being the Baptists because they're not grounded and settled. You cannot be a parakeet. You cannot be a parakeet and be a prophet at the same time. That's something for you, Apostle Ryan Mob. You cannot be a parakeet and a prophet at the same time. Prophets are not parakeets. Unless they're a parakeet for the Lord, not for other men. So let me see. Okay, even an apostle's word is not to be taken for granted. Oh, the apostle said it, so it must be true. The noble Bereans were ready to listen and then diligent to examine, in a forensic sense, into the grounds of what does it mean by grounds? Let's go into the root of it. Where's the root is? Right under where our roots are on the tree, under the ground of what was said. And search the scriptures. The word is not the same as in the well-known passage, John 5:39, which says, search the scriptures, for in them you think you have eternal life, and they are they which testify of me. So now you know what we got to do? We got to look that word up. So that's a different word from this word. Where is it? Because the Bereans, Old Testament scriptures. Well, you got to read the passage, actually. Search the scriptures. Matter of fact, let me do this. These were more noble than those of Thessalonica, in that they received the word with all readiness of mind, focus, and search the scriptures daily, whether those things were so. So now let's come over here to okay, let me come over here. Get ready to close it. Bear with me for a minute. Come on now. Let's pull up the word search. Search the scriptures. Let's look up the word search. Search. To search, examine into, same thing. You got to study. Study to show thyself approval. Workman not, if not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. These guys that teach that the MOTB is an embargo, is this, is that, it's sin, they're gonna be ashamed. They're gonna be ashamed. All right. Anyway, with that, I'm gonna say shalom.